chords on the piano.
Oh, the G chords?
Piano.
Okay.
7 piano.
Hey, Dr. Hawkinson, can you go play all the 7 chords again? I really like when you do that.
The which chords?
The 7.
Oh, the 7th chord.
Yeah, I had a really rough week and can you just go and play them all the different ones, please?
Sure.
Oh my
Why
gosh.
don't we start that? That's a good one.
That's such a
I know, and I was like, this sounds cool.
I could jazz in my life.
Alright, major. Major, minor. Minor. Nice sound. I like that one. Half diminished. And finally, fully diminished.
Yeah.
It sounds like it has a bit of like the pinballs or thing, where it's just like chord doesn't break away some of the places to make it do it. It's cool.
I like when Hawkinson plays that.
That's motion.
So
It lets
I,
me away from my normal life.
let's get started for today. I just returned your homework, and I just want to be ultra clear about something. When we write Roman numerals that are uppercase, I'm going to have to insist that you use these horizontal lines on the bottom and the top, because otherwise I can't tell a difference between your lowercase and your uppercase. And there is a big difference, right? Because uppercase means a major triad and lowercase means a minor triad. So from now on, especially with the 5s and the 1s, if you want to indicate an uppercase, make sure you have the horizontal line across the top and the bottom. Now I know that when you look at the book and in the workbook when it's typed, they don't have that all the way across. But you know, when something's typed, your eye can tell whether it's large or small. And I can't really do that unless I have something to compare it to. So just do the lines across the bars across the top and the bottom regardless. Then your lowercase Roman numerals can look different because most of them will have like these I's or these dots over these lowercase ones, right? So there'll be a clear difference between those. So let's just adopt that method, and from henceforth and from now on it will all be a lot clearer. And you'll know what I'm expecting, and I'll know what you're intending to write. So, okay. So what we need to do is we need to open up to workbook page 21 if you haven't already. And I am going to collect this page. But of course, before I do that, I do want to give you an opportunity to ask questions. We had just sections A and B on this page. There were no Roman numerals that you had to write, just identifying 7th chord types and also spelling the 7th chord types. By the way, what were the 5 types of 7th chords we learned last class? Who can give me one of them?
Major.
Okay, the major 7, otherwise known for me as the major 7. Yeah. Did he say half diminished?
Yeah, you know what I did.
Or did he present height? Or did you see that?
Half the minute.
Okay, so half diminished 7 can be labeled like that, or you could put diminished minor 7. That's fine.
Major, minor.
Good. Major minor 7. You have one there? The minor 7. Yep. And there was one more.
Fully diminished.
The fully diminished 7. That's right. Otherwise known as the diminished 7.
Well, just should have acted like we didn't know what the last one was, like it was where we didn't teach it.
Yeah. Then I'd be like, man, I'm out of here. No, not really. Okay, let's, I digress. Let's get back on task. Does anyone have a question about anything in section A or B before I connect this page?
Good questions involve asking you to play some chords.
I guess if it pertains to this assignment, yeah.
Oh, in that case, we'll play number 12.
In which section A or B?
Oh, okay.
Okay, A number 12. Yes. That one sounds like this.
Nice.
Maybe your ear will start telling you what kind of. I'll tell you what, I'll volunteer to do one because I think it's pretty tricky. Number 15 in section B. I had a question on that early in the earlier class, and so I'll go ahead and do it because it's, well, it's a little thorny. We have a C in the bass clef as the root of the chord, and we're supposed to spell a fully diminished seventh above that. By the way, the note given in section B is the root, so don't put any notes below it. They all go above. Okay? So if you recall last class, one way to remember how to spell a fully diminished seventh chord is to remember to just stack notes at the interval of a minor third all the way up. Minor third all the way up. So a minor third above C gives me an E flat. A minor third above E flat, I get a G flat. And what's a minor third above a G? That's right, a B double flat. So in this one, you actually had to use a double flat to get it to be spelled correctly. And again, another way to look at it is to say that the bottom three notes, C, E flat, G flat, that's a diminished triad. It is. And then the seventh from C up to B double flat, that's a diminished seventh interval. So that follows the recipe for a fully diminished seventh. Sure, number 12? Okay. So we're in the treble clef there. And we have D sharp as the root. Oh, it's another fully diminished seventh. Cool. Yeah. All right. So a minor third above D sharp is F sharp. And a minor third, again, above F sharp is A. And a minor third above A is just plain C. So for this one, I would have D sharp, F sharp, and then just A natural C natural.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions before I pick this up? Number 3, section B. Okay. This one, okay, yeah, this one happens. So we're in the bass clef, and the root is A, and we're supposed to spell a half diminished seventh chord above that. Now, a half diminished seventh chord is going to be minor third, major third. So, a minor third above A is C. A minor third above C is E flat. But a major third now above E flat is G natural. So the final answer for that one should be A, C, E flat, G. And again, it follows the recipe because A, C, E flat is a diminished triad. But A up to G, G natural is a minor seventh interval. So that makes it half diminished. The triad is diminished, the seventh interval is minor. All right, could you make sure your name is somewhere at the top, and I'll come around and gather these up. Don't worry, I won't more semesters of this class you take, you'll hear me play a lot more stuff.
Thank goodness.
I think you have to stay here next.
All right.
All we have to do to get people to do music here, even though they don't use their majors, is just tell them that they get to hear what
Well, I was thinking about this earlier today, and that is, I would imagine that many of the majors, aside from music on this campus, I would think that, when you're freshmen or sophomores, you take some of the easier classes in those fields, and then finally when you're juniors and seniors, maybe you take the more complicated, complex classes in those fields. But it doesn't seem to be that way with music, right? Because when you're a freshman, you have to go to music theory right away because there's a ton of information, and you've got to be kind of like well versed in the language of music, so you at least know some basics about it. And so, maybe it's different than other majors, but I will never say this class is easy. If you think it's easy, that's fine, great. If you think it's hard, I'm not offended either. But I guarantee, I understand there's a lot of information in this class, and it's just the nature of the subject and what you need to do. Yes.
What was your primary instrument?
My primary instrument was the church organ. The pipe organ, that's right. But we don't have any on campus, so I don't play.
But you can still play the piano.
Well, yeah, but see, the organ has foot pedals too.
Yeah. And you can still play seventh chords.
Yeah, you
And I wouldn't be offended.
You should show us some of those seventh chords.
yeah.
It was like, I was talking to Noah on the way up the stairs yesterday. I was like, I could sit there for an hour and a half and listen to Hawkins and just play seventh chords all the time.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really good. Thank you.
I'm also easily used, but like,
Okay. Yeah, I know. If you give me flashing lights, I'm like, ooh. Just something simple like that. Yeah, Christmas time, I'm just like, wow.
See, they would stop at the side of the road in front of the house for Christmas lights, slowly, lights.
Yeah.
we used to throw aerosol cans in the garbage barrel. That's the only way for it to go off.
So today we're going to talk more about seventh chords. Last class we got just an introduction to determining the type of seventh chord, introducing those 5 types, and then spelling and identifying them. Okay? But just like triads can be inverted, well, so also can seventh chords. Okay? So you know how we can rearrange the notes of a triad to have 3 different bass positions? Well, we can rearrange all the notes of the seventh chord, and because there are 4 notes in the seventh chord, we can have a total of 4 bass positions rather than just 3. Right? With the triad, we have root position, first inversion, and second inversion. With the seventh chord, we're going to have root position, first inversion, second inversion, and then there's something extra called a third inversion.
Oh,
Yeah, third inversion. So let's start by looking at a root position seventh chord and seeing how we rearrange them to get the various bass positions. So I'll have a seventh chord. I'll use my example starting on G. And here is a root position seventh chord. We can tell it's in root position because, like triads, everything is stacked in thirds. And that gives you always the root position. And what does root position mean? Well, it means that the lowest note of the arrangement of pitches is the root. That helps us tremendously identify things about music and chords. When all the notes are stacked in thirds, we know that the bottom pitch there is the root. We know then that the next pitch up is the third. The next pitch higher than that is the fifth. And the highest pitch is the seventh of the chord. They're all in the correct order when a chord is stacked in thirds. These are the 4 members of the chord: root, third, fifth, and seventh. Now, let's give each of the other pitches besides the bottom one, let's give each of them a turn to be the lowest sounding pitch. So if I were to take this G, and if I were to just kind of throw it up there, an octave or 2 or 3, whatever, get that out of the way so that the third of the chord, the B, is the lowest sounding pitch of all of them. And I'll rewrite it like this then. You see how now the third of the chord is on the bottom. When the third of the chord is on the bottom of the seventh chord, we say that the seventh chord is in the first inversion. Just like when a triad is in first inversion, the third of the chord is on the bottom. When the fifth of the seventh chord is the lowest sounding tone of all, and in this case the fifth is the pitch D, if I rearrange the notes so that D is on the bottom, then we say that the seventh chord is in second inversion. And then since there's one more note in the seventh chord, let's rearrange them so that the seventh of the chord, this F here, is the lowest sounding one of all. And when we do that, that's something we don't have to, nothing compares in the triad row because there's only 3 notes there. But in this case, we have something called third inversion. Third inversion. And that is always going to be the inversion or the bass position when the seventh of the chord is on the bottom, the lowest sounding note of all. So we have 4 total bass positions with 7 chords. We have root position where everything is stacked in thirds, and we have 3 inversions: first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. And one of the nice, I think it's kind of a nice easy way to identify or find where the root is when the chord is inverted. It's pretty neat for 7th chords. You see how every inverted 7th chord here, there's always 2 notes that are at the interval of a second somewhere in there. You see those, how they're just offset? Well, the root of a 7th chord is always going to be the higher of the 2 notes that form a second. It's kind of neat, yeah. So in this case, the root of this arrangement, this inversion, is G. The root of this bass position is G because it's the higher of the 2 notes that form a second. And the root of this one is also G because it's the higher of 2 notes that form a second. So in that sense, I think it makes it a little bit easier, at least when the 7th chord is inverted, to find the root. Well, how easy to find the root when the chord's in root position? Well, yeah, just look at the bottom. So, yeah.
So what's the difference in sound between these?
Not much. They're going to sound the same, except that the bass note is going to change. Okay, so here we have root position. Here we have first inversion. That's on the bottom. Here's second inversion. And finally third inversion. That's on the bottom.
So, did you refer to first inversion as a chord with the 6th added to it? Like, would that be like B augmented add 6 or something like that? Or?
Yeah, I try to steer clear of those terms until we get to a later semester of theory. Because all of these notes can be stacked in thirds, then we don't refer to them as a chord with an added something.
Okay.
Usually a chord with an added something is a chord where the added note doesn't really belong or fit and doesn't get stacked, cannot get stacked in thirds, but it's just kind of just stuck on there, tacked on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to steer clear of that terminology for now.
Just curious.
No, that's good. All right, so we talked about how to find the root of an inverted 7th chord really quickly. So with this information, let's go ahead and try a few examples determining some important information about all of these 7th chords that I'm going to put up here. Let's start with this one. I need just 3 pieces of information. Number 1, I need to know what pitch is the root. Number 2, I need to know which of the 5 types of 7th chord this is. And number 3, I need you to tell me the bass position. So looking at that arrangement is, well, what's the root?
D sharp.
D sharp, right? The lowest note, because it's stacked in thirds. So D sharp is the root. Can anyone tell me what type of 7th chord? Say again? Yeah, it's one of those, you're right, because the triad is diminished. Is the 7th diminished, or is the 7th a minor 7th?
So it's fully.
It's fully diminished, yeah. It's a fully diminished 7th chord. And then finally, what bass position is it in? This one of those 4 up there. Root position, yeah. And that's not too bad. Who knows, maybe the trickiest part of all this is just going to be still finding out the type of 7th chord. Could be. Let's try another one. This time we're going to the bass clef, and I've got this chord. Notice there are 4 different pitches. So it's a 7th chord, it's not just a triad. But now, based on what I told you before, just take maybe 1 or 2 seconds and tell me what is the root of that chord.
A.
The A, that's right. You nailed it. That's right. Exactly. Because it's the higher of the 2 notes that form a second. So A is the root. Now, to me, usually to find out the type of 7th chord, if you can't rearrange it in the root position in your mind, then usually what I do is do this on a piece of scratch paper. This is the way the chord will look in root position. A, C, E, G, no accidentals at all. Can you tell from this what type of 7th chord that is? It's a minor 7th. Minor, minor. Yep. That's right. And what, ooh, here's a good question. What bass position is this original chord in? 3rd inversion, that's right. The 7th of the chord, the G, that's on the bottom. So that's 3rd inversion. Absolutely. Okay. Try a couple more of these. Stay in the bass clef. And let's take a look at this one. Okay. Take a few moments. What is the root of the chord? E. That's right, it's this one. Okay, so we know that. That means we would know which note goes on the bottom if we were to imagine it, think of it, or rewrite it in root position. For instance, I can do it like this. Don't change the notes though. Just rearrange it. All right, now what type of 7th chord is that? Yes, that one is half diminished. And finally, what bass position is the 7th chord in? 2nd inversion. Why? Because the 5th of the chord, that's root 3rd, 5th, with B flat, that's the lowest sounding tone. And when the 5th is on the bottom of anything, it's called 2nd inversion. All right, one last one. Let's go to the treble clef for a change of pace. First of all, what is the root? Which one? D flat is the root. You bet. Right? Good. Now, can any of you just do this in your mind? Just kind of imagine the D flat, drop it down an octave so that it's all stacked in thirds, D flat, F, A flat, C flat. What type of 7th chord is that? No. What's that? No. D flat.
D flat.
Oh, D flat, F, A flat is a major triad.
Gosh, I can.
We both did the C.
Yeah, we thought it was the.
So it's a major something.
Yeah.
It's either major major or major minor.
Major minor.
Yeah, it's a major minor 7th chord. Yeah. And
It's not
what bass position is
Which is the first version.
First inversion, yeah, the third of the chords is the lowest sounding one of
Major,
all.
minor, scale.
Must be fair.
Gosh darn it all the heck.
Yeah, big facts. Guys, Hawkinson nailed it on the head on that one. Gosh darn all the head. Isn't that at the end of, Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, I
mean, all that heck.
Not exactly sure. Okay, now, so we did that. So the next thing I need to do is the following. Like triads, we also use numbers to indicate the various bass positions of seventh chords. Do you remember, like with triads, we came up with the numbers 5, 3 to indicate root position, or basically nothing at all. You don't have to write it. And we came up with 6 means first inversion triad. And then what numbers means second inversion triad? 6, 4, that's right. And those numbers were actually the interval sizes of all the pitches found above the lowest note in each bass position. So we're going to generate some numbers for 7th chord bass positions in just the same way. All right, and let me do it in a different color. I'm going to try to squeeze them in here even though there's not a lot of room. But it's just the interval sizes of the notes above the lowest tone. So for instance, B is how far above a G? It's a third. How far is D above a G? A fifth. And how far is F above a G? So the numbers to indicate or mean a root position 7th chord is 7, 5, 3. Okay. Let's see what numbers we get out of this arrangement. Again, it's just above the lowest sounding pitch. The D above a B is a third. The F above a B is a fifth. And how far is G above a B? 6. So to indicate a first inversion triad, we use the numbers 6, 5, 3. 6, 5. Continuing on with the second inversion, D to F is a third, D to G is a fourth, and D to B is a sixth. So the numbers for second inversion, 7th chords, are 6, 4, 3. And finally, for the third inversion, G above the lowest pitch F is a second, B above F is a fourth, and D above F is a sixth. So the numbers used to mean a third inversion 7th chord are 6, 4, 2. 6, 4, 2. Now, I understand this is a lot of information, but there's no way we can understand and make sense of these chords and their inversions and music in our mind if it were not for numbers. You've got to use numbers. Just like with triads, composers, musicians back in the day, well, they were either to save time, space, or ink, they discarded some of these numbers. So let me shorten this up for you and it'll help you remember it a lot better. For the root position 7th chord, they discarded the bottom 2. So really, all you need to do to indicate a root position 7th chord is the number 7. It's what we call its bass position symbol. Just a 7. For the first inversion, they discarded this 3 on the bottom. So the minimum symbol for a first inversion 7th chord is 6, 5. 6, 5. For the second inversion of a 7th chord, they discarded this one, the 6. So what's left is the numbers 4, 3. And that will always mean from now on a second inversion 7th chord, with the 5th on the bottom. And finally, the third inversion 7th chord, they discarded the 6 on the top. So what's left to indicate that inversion is 4, 2. 4, 2. So, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. All right, now, work exactly, but it's pretty close. Ever since I've been teaching theory, teaching seventh chords, you might notice a little bit of a pattern here. It's not exact, but you notice how root position is 7. First inversion is 6-5. Second inversion is 4-3. And it'd be nice if third inversion was just 2, because then you could have 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You could remember. Well, we just have to add an extra 4 in there. So if you need to remember and associate the number, the base position symbol with the proper seventh chord base position, kind of remember 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, but just you need 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2. Just an extra 4. Maybe that'll help. Lodge that in the mind. I don't think I'm going to turn on the TVs and the camera just to show this, but I will point you to page 44 in your textbook. Page 44 in the textbook has a table right in the middle of the page, and it actually gives you all of this number information we just went through. Right? The table in the middle of page 44 will tell you that the full base position symbol for root position is 753, but then it says that the symbol most often used is just 7. You'll find that there. And the full symbol for first inversion seventh chord is 653, but the symbol most often used is 65, and so on and so forth. It also has the symbol, the base position symbols for the triads in that table as well, if you forget those. So I kind of like to tell students about this page because it's a nice reference go-to page if you forget, bless you. Or if you don't have this information handy in your notes, or you can't find your notes or something like that, at least it's right here in the book. You've got a place to refer to in case you forget. Okay, so that's my little plug for page 44. All right, now, with this information, I don't have a lot of room, but I'm going to do it anyways. Let's go back to these 4 seventh chords. We already found their base position here. Let's just attach the right base position symbol to these chords. Okay? So, a root position seventh chord, what is its base position symbol? Just a 7, right? That's all you need. Notice that if you have a root position triad, you don't need anything. But if you need a root position seventh chord, you have to indicate that with at least a 7. That way musicians can tell the difference between do you want root position triad or root position seventh chord. Well, this will make it clear. Okay, what about a third inversion seventh chord? What's the base position symbol? 4-2. Okay. And for a second inversion seventh chord? 4-3. And finally, for a first inversion seventh chord? 6-5. So as long as you remember, this means root position, this means first inversion, this means second inversion seventh chord, and this means third inversion seventh chord. And if you also associate with that this information that here the root is the lowest tone, so the root is on the bottom. In first inversion, the third of the chord is the lowest tone. In second inversion, the fifth of the chord is the lowest tone. And in third inversion, the seventh of the chord is in the bottom, the lowest tone. That's what all that information means. Okay? All right, let me pause here for a moment. How are we doing? Do you have any questions? Is it making sense? It is kind of logical. It really is. It's not like we pull these numbers out of a hat or just out of midair. This is coming from somewhere. It's just remembering, well, what are these, what does that mean? What does this refer to? Okay, then let's go, and I'm going to erase the top staff so that I can give you some exercises in basically spelling, identifying, and rewriting now some seventh chords in inversion. the, yeah, I'll keep the trouble here. Now I know it's either on a future quiz or test, or both, I can't remember which one. I know that I have some problems with seventh chord, some exercises devised that look something, ask me to do something like this. First of all, let's take this seventh chord and identify its type. And then after that, over here, I want somebody to help me rewrite this chord in, let's see, I can't even read my own handwriting, 4/3 inversion. Well, let's identify the type of seventh chord first. It is. It's a fully diminished seventh chord. Okay. Now, so write it in 4/3 inversion. Translate that for me. 4/3 inversion is that root position, first, second, or third inversion. What does that mean? Second inversion, and that means which chord member needs to be on the bottom? The fifth, that's right. Okay? So we're taking root position, which tells us everything. Root, third, fifth. So the G needs to be on the bottom. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. I'm not going to change the pitches. I'm just going to rearrange it. So I'm going to do it such that G is on the bottom. So here's one way that I could write that. Is E, and C sharp, and B flat, right? Okay. So, in other words, one of the things I want you to know how to do is take a root position chord and rewrite it in the proper inversion. Now, some students in the past, and this goes beyond the scope of the class, you don't need to know this, I won't take points off for it. Some students in the past have asked me, well, how do you know whether to put the C to the right or the left and the B flat to the right? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's beyond the scope of this class. Just know that when you have two notes that are a second apart, they have to be staggered. They have to be just a little offset, so they're not crashing and cramming into one. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Let's let's go to this chord. DFAC, no accidentals at all. And let's rewrite this one in 4/2 inversion. First of all, what type of seventh chord do we have here? I'm sorry, I'm getting not
Minor.
yeah, it's a minor seventh chord. Okay. Minor. 4/2 inversion. If you didn't have these notes here, which inversion is that? First, second, or third? Third, okay, and that means which chord member needs to be on the bottom? The seventh, which means the C. We need to rewrite it so that it's still DFAC, but the C is the lowest tone. Okay? So you can do it one of two ways, it doesn't matter. You can bring the C down here. Oh, there's the chord, but let's C is the bottom. Or if you didn't want to do that, if you wanted to do it the other way, just move all the other notes above the C. Either answer is perfectly acceptable. We'll try it. It's DFAC with C on the bottom. Okay, I think I got one more here. Yeah, let's do that. What type of seventh chord is that? E flat, G, B flat, D flat. It is, yeah. Major, minor. Good. Six, 5 inversion. Start getting in your mind that means first inversion of the seventh chord. which means the third of the chord, the G, needs to be the lowest sounding pitch of all. So, if I rewrite it without changing the notes, I still need B flat, I still need D flat, and I still need E flat. But I've got G on the bottom. That's the proper bass position arrangement of those notes for first inversion seven. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you play the second one?
Which one?
The second one.
This one here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Really?
If I play it where it's written, it's going to sound a little muddy because it's really low. But if I take it up an octave, it'll sound just nice. All right. Looks like we're going to finish a little bit early. I'm sure you have no objections. Just so you know, your assignment for Monday is workbook page 23 and 26, but just selected exercises. So you don't need to do the whole page. Let me get to 23 quickly. My book is so old it's falling apart. So in section A of page 23, you're just going to do the ones up on the top that you haven't done already. So you've done some, they're triads, but the remaining ones I think are seventh chords. So you can just do the ones that haven't been done up on the top. And the assignment sheet will tell you specifically which exact numbers those are. And then on page 26, I only want you to analyze the harmonies in the top system there. Just the top half. You don't have to analyze the chords in the bottom half, so it's just numbers 1 through 15. And here, you're going to get a mixture of triads and seventh chords. So that'll help you remember your numbers, your bass position symbols for all of those chords. So just the top half, 1 through 15. No, 1 through 17, I'm sorry. 1 through 17. All right, so we're about 5 minutes early, but it's Friday. Have a good weekend, guys. We'll see you on Monday. That's all she wrote.
Track practice, marching band.
Magic band.
No, we're doing that.
Marching band.
I'm gonna